So, without further ado, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce This is another in a series of live broadcasts enjoying the creative sounds of music and harmony. Hope you enjoy. Don't touch that dial. Keep it locked. Tuned in and turned on.
Welcome to the Talk Dirty to Me podcast with the Maestro. Not just numbers, not just stats. It's about what they mean. And now, your host, the Maestro.
Welcome to episode 2 of the Talk Dirty to Me podcast with the Maestro. That's me. And again, thank you for taking the time to listen to us and hang out. So let's just hop right into it, okay? So let's talk some origin stories here. It's not a Marvel origin story or anything like that. It's really more in the line of my dirty origin story. Like, where does it come from? And for those of you who don't know, that's what I look for. I look for the players who give me points, assists, rebounds, steals, blocks. And even though it's not a stat, I'd love to get a charge in there, even though I can't hold anybody to that since it's not an official stat. So I can't legally make that part of the deal. And the reason that is always so exciting to me is it shows me a player that's working on both sides of the floor. It shows me a player that's working for every single one of their teammates, stepping in where they have to, stepping in where they need to, stepping in where the team needs them to reset what's going on and what's going down when a particular play may or may not go sideways, and how do we keep the ball in our favor. Very key. We don't have to tell anyone listening to this particular podcast, basketball is a game of feel. And sometimes it means keeping my feeling good, making my making my opponents feeling bad. How do I do that? I disrupt the game. I can become a disruptor by a steal, by taking a charge. Yes, I'm going to keep saying that even though I know it's not a stat. You can add me. It's all good. Don't worry about it. Or if I block a shot, you change how they approach something. If you block 2 shots, as we've seen multiple times this year, players have been walking away with multiple blocks in the game, change the dynamic of what happens in the paint. It might mean instead of going up or going at the shot a certain way, I'm going to change my game. I change my game. I'm doing something I'm not used to. I do something I'm not used to. What am I doing? I'm increasing the percentage of failure. And that's what a dirty does. Increases the need of success for their team, increasing the percentage of failure for the opponent's team, and outright being in the middle of the mix. I had an aunt that was her thing, man. She used to love to get in fights. I mean, just if she's somebody fighting, she's hopping in there. And if it's more than one person, she was in heaven. And I was just asking, what's going on? Mom would just tell me, sometimes you got to be in the middle of it to get it done. I said, okay, I'm going to trust you on that. Good parenting. Well done, you. So that's what I look for in my dirties. What are you doing for your team? Are you giving the maximum amount of effort everywhere? And no, sometimes it means you're not going to be the leading scorer. Sometimes you're not going to be the leading rebounder. Sometimes you're not going to be the leading assist person, all the glory stats. But you're going to give your team a chance where those stats gained by other players are actually going to mean something. And that's why that is so important. And let's talk about that on the other side in the more traditional sense, in the double dubs and the triple dubs this season. So far, there's only been one triple dub. Blaine Kidd has still holding that title, opened up our season with a triple double, set the SimWorld Hoops media frenzy on fire. And it's gotten really close to that sense. A lot of other people have come really close, a rebound here and assist there, stuff like that. But getting that triple double is a big deal, and it's not as easy as people think. So let's go back in a little history lesson. Let's talk about the very first guy who made the triple double a thing, a gentleman by the name of Oscar Robertson. Before there was Magic Johnson or Magic or Michael Jordan or Jason Kidd or those players, it was Oscar Robertson. Oscar Robertson was considered the premier and best basketball player of his day. He was able to handle the ball. He was a good sized guard for the time. He had handle, he had speed, he had shot, he had leadership. He had all those things that you look for in your guard, and he made it happen on the regular basis. And he did so in what the stat became standardized as is what we call the triple double. Magic Johnson, as you all know, came along later. He eclipsed Oscar Robertson's record, the Big O, as he was called, uh, for his for his numbers in triple double. Then that was followed up, of course, by Jason Kidd. I wonder how come Jason Kidd never had a really cool nickname. Oscar Robertson was the Big O. Magic was just Magic. Jason Kidd was always just Jason Kidd. I don't know. If you know that, holla at your boy. Let me know what's going on. So the idea, though, when you look at what Oscar Robertson did, and let's just going to get some of the ugly stuff out the way, why he's probably not celebrated the way he was, is he turned away so many people with his attitude toward the game because, quite frankly, he always made it about himself. Not wrongly in some cases. He did not win his first championship until he had a chance to play with a gentleman by the name of Lou Alcindor, later to become Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But Kareem Abdul-Jabbar won championships with everybody. So he always made jokes that he was never going to celebrate Magic Johnson breaking his record because he said Magic Johnson turns to the left, he's got Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He turns to the right, he's got James Worthy. He turns over here, he just named all the All-Stars that were with the Lakers, and he said, I didn't have those guys. He actually called out some of his teammates, basically saying they weren't really that good, but I still got triple doubles anyway. Maybe not the leader you want, but he was the leader they had. The thing about a triple double is you're pushing your team in so many different ways to take advantage of every aspect of their game, getting the rebounds. They can now break out on a breakaway, passing them open to a shot, and also scoring when everyone's looking at everyone else. You're able to take advantage of that and step in, get points for your team. And Blaine Kidd did that for us this year. I'm still waiting for that next one. Somebody give me something. Blaine, am I talking to you, my man? You're going to do it for us again? I hope you do. Would love to see it. All right, let's step off the court for just a quick minute. Something happened this week in sports that's shaking up the business world, and that is Live Golf and the PGA. I know it's golf, it's not basketball. Hang with me one second, because now all of a sudden those two leagues have merged. Now, what happened is the players for the PGA Tour, you can go and look this up, the players for the PGA Tour that did not go to Live, did not take the huge buyout, stood fast all year to stand up for the PGA Tour, to stand up for taking less money, to stand up for everything else because of the tradition of the game, and then the league seemed to turn their back on them. And oh, by the way, it's coming down ugly right now because a lot of the players feel betrayed. They feel like, wow, I should have taken the money too, because then 1 year later, I could have come back and would have had, in some cases, for some players, over $200 million in my pocket and still be a member of the PGA Tour. This is why so many players look out for number one before they look out for the league, or in some cases, even their teams. That's just why we say we never talk about the money. A player's got to make a choice for the player, and this is a case where an entire league turned its back on over 200 card-holding members of one of the most elite sports in the world in terms of percentage-wise of people who actually play it, and those players feel betrayed, and you can't blame them. I certainly don't blame them. Check it out. Follow that story. Going to learn about a lot how international business work and everything else. And come back for the second half of this week's Talk Dirty to Me podcast, and we're going to look at some teams that had some challenging schedules and how they handled them, and maybe how they are handling them with some back-to-backs, y'all.
Thank you for listening to the Talk Dirty to Me podcast with the Maestro. Want to get involved? Bring it in. Drop in discord.gg/SimWorld NBA. If you have the brain, join as a coach. If you have the game, join as a player. See the game, be the game. But now, back to Talk Dirty to Me with the Maestro.
Once again, for the Soul Children's String section.
Let's get back to some wonderful sounds.
And welcome to an awkward number of Talk Dirty to Me podcast with the Maestro. That's me. Thank you for taking your time out to check this out. I always want to hear your feedback, hear what you got to say. Tell me what you want to hear. Let's talk about it all. Let's hop right into the facts right now, though. So this previous week, the Yacht Club had a 3-play. They played They went 2-1. In the process, one of their 2 wins was against the number 1 team, the Originators. Very well done. We talked about how strong this team was. We talked about their where they sit in terms of points per game, field goal percentage, opponents' 3 points per game, their just everything, the offensive rebounding, and they were able to turn those offensive rebounds into points, and that's what made a big difference. That's what made a better move, if you want to say that, for that particular team in terms of what they were able to do last week. And of course, as always, Coach Lassiter, leading the way with Dominique Bianco, Adam Max, Riz Davis Wright, Tyshawn Issam, and DeMarco Graham. Solid players getting it done every single night. The only game that they lost was on the third of their back-to-back. And you know what? Legs might have played a little role in it, maybe, or maybe it's just time. Every night in SimWorld Hoops, we talk about this all the time. You have to bring your A game every single night, otherwise you're going to get run over like a truck. So they're able to show that not only are their consistency as a team in terms of what they were able to do was able to stand each and every night. More importantly, for the rest of us, they were able to show that they had a game plan and they stuck to that game plan, and it worked 2 of the 3 games. Maybe the third game, some might say they might have been somewhat outplayed. That's not an argument I'm going to make. I'm just going to be honest with you about it. I didn't see it that way. I think they were relatively in it. Yes, it did get out of hand a little bit, but I think they were in it up until that point, and that might have been legs. But so after they have their back-to-back, along come this particular week in SimWorld Hoops, and we have 2 teams with back-to-back. And well, starting with SimWorld Europe. Now their schedule, from where they're sitting, doesn't look as daunting, but I guess when you're on the bottom of your division, it's going to feel that way. Can't fault them. You got to play. Their first game is against the last place team. Their second game is against a 5th place team, and the third game is against a 3rd place team. So we'll just take that for what it is, because I want to focus on someone else. And I have a feeling that's SimWorld Europe, where a lot of people are seeing coming out of their shell, so to speak, as you heard spoken by with my colleague Rick Blaze and a few others, Marshpod as well, how how SimWorld Europe is sort of coming out of their stasis a little bit, and they're being able to move forward, which is awesome. That's what we want to see, right? So, but I want to talk about another team, Reigning Trays. Reigning Trays basically looked at all those back-to-backs and said, you know what? Hold my kicks. They're doing a back-to-back. That's right, 4 nights in a row. And oh, by the way, their schedule is what you expect as a top-tier team in SimWorld Hoops, okay? Their first game against Showtime, which is currently ranked number 3. Their next game is against Best Coast. Is against Best Coast. They're ranked number 1. Their third game is against Atlantis. They're currently number 4. And their last game is against Run DMV, who's also ranked number 1. That is a gauntlet. That is a gauntlet through which Coach Finn Hayes is going to have to navigate his team through which Finn Hayes' coach is going to have to place into context exactly what his team can do and when they can do it. And looking at what they have in front of them, they're going to be leaning heavy on, well, let's just start at the top here. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but Yaphet Towns, their leading scorer, also ranked number 8 in SimWorld Hoops. And yeah, I'm going to talk about rankings just so we can get perspective on what people think about what's on the team. But we all know that, what the rankings really mean when it comes down to getting a win is, I won't say they're irrelevant, but they're a decent guy. Jason Crosser and Kevin Jackson, the other 2 ranked members, help lead the team respectively in rebounds per games and assists per games. Is what you want to see. It's really balanced across the table with that particular team. I believe everybody, much like what we saw with the Yacht Club, everybody averages well over 1 rebound a game, which is really cool. It shows you that everybody's getting into the bucket. Let's leave their record out of it for 1 second. Okay, so let's talk about what's really important. And that is this. It's easy to see the Trays put themselves in a position as probably one of the, I'm going to say, underrated number 2 teams in the division, maybe even in the league. When you look at other teams that are cranking out like a 13 or 14 win seasons already at this particular point, as at the point of this recording, I believe the Trays are 10-9, so a game over 500. But do not sleep on what they're bringing every night and the balance with which they bring it. Okay, they have 3 players that score in double digits. What does that tell me? That means that they're a team that has a balanced scoring attack across the table. They have one option if you shut down the top option. They have 2 more options that can also put the ball in the bucket. All right. Everyone else seemed to be fitting in their roles in terms of being able to support the team, being able to put themselves in a position to make sure that everyone else gets the ball. And let's talk about those reboundings. What do you have heard me say this time and time again? Rebounds get you possessions, and they take possessions away from your opponent across the court. And that's exactly what the Trays are able to do. It's going to be really interesting for me to see how they move into this week. Their last game was a loss against the Originators of 68-53. But with this particular, which is also a number 1 team. So the Trays have a gauntlet of a schedule in front of them this week. And I'm going to be really, really interested to see what they're going to be, where they're going to be at the end of these 4 games. I have a feeling, I know coaches never want to say if we go, because coaches, though they might look ahead, they're not going to look ahead, if you know what I mean. I'm sure the players are not. One game at a time, one possession at a time, one shot at a time. I got a feeling that this week the reigning Trays are going to give it to us the way we need to see and what we need to see in order to put themselves in a position to not only be number 2, but maybe even fighting for the top spot in their division. It's going to be really fun to check that out. Thank you for checking out Talk Dirty to me. Let me hear from you. What do you think about the Trays and what they're going to be doing this week? How they're going to do a back-to-back. Who knows what we might see later, right? These games now are going to maybe speak for what's going to come later on in the season, how they're going to build up their girth, build up their stamina, build up where they are, and they're going to be playoff ready as we move to the race to 1. Thank you all for checking it out, and definitely can't wait to talk to you all soon. So there was this time, right, when I got my first car, and I'm driving down the highway, and I see the lights behind me. It's the sheriff's office, right? But then I'm also seeing smoke. I'm like, what is that going on? So then the guy I pull over, guy walks up to me, old school Southern dude, says, "Man, did you know your car was on fire?" And I'm like, what do you mean it's on fire?
I mean, I didn't realize we were starting right now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again for checking out the Talk Dirty to Me podcast with the Maestro. Drop a tag below and give us a piece of your mind.
So, see you next time and talk dirty to me.